everybody, welcome back to the FSN Education Center. I'm Hannah, and today we're going to work on a garden-style arrangement. Now, we already have this container nice and greened due to our other video, so go ahead and check that out really quick. But we're going to use this as a perfect base to start our arrangement. So let's get started. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use our roses. I like to start with a focal point. Sometimes people say to go ahead and use some secondary flowers or some fillers first, but I like to use our focal main flowers. So what we chose today is our beautiful pink roses. I love these. Now, when you're working with roses, what you do need to pay attention to is the guard petals. So with roses, they always have these protective petals, which are perfect for when they're growing and when they're being packed, but you don't necessarily need them in your arrangement. So when you're picking them, you need to pick off any of the petals that maybe don't look right to you. So if they have a little bit of a tear or if they're just kind of on the outside, you can go ahead and tear that off really quick. Now you can see that it's still beautifully intact and there's still several petals. So whatever you're thinking about how to build your arrangement, you're going to think based on shape. So do you want it to be asymmetrical, where it's tall on one side and kind of lower on the other, where you have things draping off? Or do you want it to be kind of circular, where it goes like this? Or do you want it to be all highs or all lows or in groupings? It really just depends on how you want to do it. There's no wrong way to design, just however you prefer to design. So what we're going to do, how I prefer to design, is we're going to toss this kind of right over in the middle. So we're going to toss this right about here. Okay. All right, there we go. Now that we've got it kind of stuck in, you want it to be varying levels. So I want a few moments of interest over here, a few moments of interest over here. So we're going to go ahead and put in another rose. Now, when you're thinking of how many of each to use, you're going to consider the 3, 5, 7 rule. So with roses, you don't want to put in 2 or 4 roses. You want it to kind of have different layers of it, but you also want to have a good odd number. This is good for the eye just because it kind of evens it out a little bit and it helps give different varying levels. So you saw that I cut that rose at a specific length. We're going to cut it at a larger length, a taller length for this one, just because you don't want them to be on the same plane. So let's go ahead and put that right over here. So with my eye, I made that as a continuous line. I made it as a different and in a depth of field. So you have it in 2 different depths of field and you have it in 2 different heights. So maybe I want this to be a little shorter and I'll put this right over here. So I took off those petals and I put it right over there. So we have 3 now. So we're only going to do 5. So this rose, we're going to look for the guard petals. We're going to go ahead and take any of the guard petals off or unsightly petals. We're going to go ahead and place it. Now I want to place this right over here. You want to give all directions and all areas something to look for and something to look at. So we're just going to do that. Check the guard petals. These roses are truly, truly beautiful. The color on here is just perfect. Okay, and we'll stick one kind of in the middle toward this side. So you see we've created some different kind of shapes and they're in different areas to cause different kind of movement, different eyes, and different points to pull your eye. So next we're going to move on to our beautiful delphinium. Now this blue delphinium is a little bit shorter than the usual delphinium. Some of them have very long strands, some of them have very short stems, some of them are very dark blue, some are very violet in nature. Quite beautiful. So this is the blue delphinium that we have today. Now because this is a very tall stem naturally on its own, we're going to use its stem height to our advantage. So these are going to be our taller pieces. So we're going to leave all of them quite tall and we're going to just start placing them in points of interest. And we're going to pop another one maybe right there. Now remember, you want these to be 3D, so you don't want them to all be on the exact same field where they're all just short and narrow right here. You want them to flout out. And because we don't have too many stems, it doesn't look too flout out. But once we start filling it out, you'll see more. So now, because we have 2 kind of in the middle and at the top, I'm going to use one down at the bottom. So we'll use one down in this kind of area. There we go. Because we don't want all of our flowers and all of our vision to come up. We want it to go out. This is a very garden, very natural kind of a look. So you want it to almost look like it's effortlessly thrown together. So now that we've used some delphinium, let's put this to the side a little bit. So now let's move on to our stalk. Now stalk is one of the most beautiful flowers in my opinion. Not only does it smell gorgeous, but it's also tall and the blooms themselves are quite wide. They're very lovely. And over time, these little blooms will also come out. So we're going to use these, also a tall stem that we're going to use to our advantage. So we're going to place these in an area that we have a little bit less going on. So we're going to place it a little further down, but also still using its height to its own advantage. Now we're kind of taking shape. We're moving in direction. We're building 3D. Because in nature, a lot of flowers gather together, we're going to place these a little closer together than we have the other ones. Some of these we've put in just one side, like the delphinium, and some of these stalk we'll place on one side as well. So this one we're going to place just a little bit over here, where you can still see it from all sides, but it's a little closer to the other stalk. And then to really round it out, we're going to place our last stalk. Maybe we'll use more, maybe not. We'll see how it kind of flows. We'll place this right over here next to the stalk, but a little further down. Now you can see that they're a little closer together, but it doesn't look clustered. It just looks cohesive close. Now we're going to use our beautiful mini carnations. So with these, because their stems are quite long, you can peel some of them apart and use them just individually. So we'll cut it about there. And these, you'll have a little bit trickier of a time to put in because they have so many blooms on the sides. So we'll just kind of toss that in there a little bit more gently because we're trying to highlight different places, different movements. So we have that there. Now you see some of these blooms are a little bit close in comparison to other ones. So in order to open those, we're going to very softly peel some of these petals back. This doesn't really damage the flower, it just opens it a little bit. So sometimes you see how this bloom is particularly long, we'll just peel it off and we'll use it somewhere else. Remember to always make your cuts as a diagonal because it's going into foam and that'll make it slide in a lot easier to the floral foam itself. So you see we placed it just quite nicely, quite closely back there. And this one that we did, we're going to cut at a diagonal. And we're going to place it just somewhere very small, but close to the other ones. So we'll place it about there, just to give it a small little peekaboo effect. Okay, I'm going to use a few more of these. Remove any unsightly anything. Trim. And place. Now we're going to use our beautiful Lysianthus. Now these are very lovely dark purple Lysianthus. These are an incredible flower, not only because do they smell wonderful, but they open quite lovely and look so soft and gentle. So we're going to peel off some of these. And with how long these are, you can separate them. So I'm going to separate them and put them in its own area. So this back area, we don't have too much, but we're not going to necessarily consider it the back. We're just placing things in different areas. So let's go ahead and highlight this area. See how we have more definition. Then just adversely, we're going to put it all over. Now, one thing that is important when you're working with floral foam is that you don't really get a second chance when it comes to placing your flower. So you need to be very diligent in where you put it and go ahead and stick to it, really. The more that you take things out and the more that you rearrange, the less the floral foam is able to stick together. So with these, look how lovely these blooms are. Sometimes they take the leaves off of items like this, but because we're going to leave this one a little bit longer, we're just going to keep it. So let's do this. There we go. Okay. And some of these, they may not have blooms on them yet, but they will. You want to have something that's kind of dynamic and lives with you. So if you're taking this to a friend or if you're taking this home, you don't want it to just look exactly the same the whole time. You want it to kind of develop and unravel the way that it naturally would, especially if it's a flower. So you want it to include your blooms that haven't quite yet bloomed, but will bloom. Because just because they don't look exactly the way you want it to right now, or just because they're not open now, doesn't mean they won't. So again, we're just placing these anywhere that you desire, anywhere that feels like there's maybe an item missing or something to just draw your eye in a particular direction. There we go. Okay, so now we're at a certain point where we're going to start looking and go, okay, where is my eye going and where do I want it to unfold? So let's add in a couple more things. Let's maybe add in a couple more stalk. We're going to add it on the side here because we're going to give it an extra little look. a little something to peek at. And we're gonna add one right in here. All right, so now we're going to toss in just a couple more. All right, so now you can see a little bit of a view of it. Now it may look like there's a few holes in there, but that's perfectly fine. However it looks is however it looks, because now we're gonna go in with our filler. For today's filler, we have beautiful pink wax that we are going to use. Now I like this in particular because you're able to peel off quite a few pieces, and because it has quite a few flowers on each one. So you see how there's quite a few blooms on here? So even though there may be a couple of places where it's less filled with maybe greenery or with flowers, this is a perfect addition because you're just gonna slide it right in and it'll fill that area. And you'll keep these smaller little pieces for kind of toward the end because you'll need something to fill in later. You see, we're just finding small little places to put these littler pieces so it fills in without overwhelming, and it smells incredible, you wouldn't believe. So now you see it's kind of rounding out a little bit more. I'm gonna use this big long piece or right over here. So you see now what I'm looking for right now is looking for stems rather than flowers. So where you see stems instead of a flower head, that's where you kind of not necessarily want to cover up, but you maybe want to put something in front of it that kind of invites your eyes rather than just something to look at. So you see how that kind of changes the look and the dynamic? That kind of not necessarily hides the look of that carnation right there, but it does kind of mask it a little bit while still making it dynamic. This is also a great arrangement for if you have any breaks while you're processing your flowers. You can also just toss them in here because this is a flower arrangement that allows for short or long pieces. So you can use tall, short, any kind of pieces that you would like. And if you get to this point and realize, maybe I would like more greenery, go ahead and put a little bit more greenery in. So again, we're just fluffing these out. There we go. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, why don't you put ranunculus out if you're not going to use it? Don't worry. So we're going to put in our ranunculus. I like to put these in last simply because they are a very delicate flower, while they are also a very gorgeous flower. So this is where we have it now. This is how we have the front, the sides, the back, and all together, 360. So these, I like to put them in highlighting spots. So for instance, right here I see a particular bulb, right in this area. So I'm going to put this right in that area. There we go. See how lovely that is? And you can still see it from all sides. You can see it circulating all around. Now with ranunculus, I like to put them on different sides because if you put them too close together, they look a little bit like eyeballs. So let's put them, hey, let's put them right here. We don't have a peach color over here. So let's put them right here. See, and it highlights not only that area, but it highlights something just kind of fun and exciting. And there you have it. We have our own garden style arrangement made of rose, lisianthus, delphinium, ranunculus, mini carnation, and wax. And it's absolutely beautiful. I love this. This color combination couldn't be any better. And it looks like it just came from somebody's spring garden. Now, I'm Hannah with Flower Shop Network, and it has been such a pleasure, so much fun. And I will see you on the next episode Education Center. Bye, guys!